She was supposed to be helpless, terrified, broken. Just another girl sold into darkness. But when the most dangerous man in Korea chooses her from a room full of victims, he sees something that doesn't belong, a flicker of awareness in eyes that should be empty. Louisa is an elite Interpol agent deep undercover, hunting a weapons smuggler hidden inside Eunwoo's criminal empire. He's the ruthless mafia king who built his throne on blood and fear. One night together should have been simple. Instead, it becomes a deadly game of deception where both pretend to be fooled while secretly unraveling each other's lies. As desire wars with duty and trust becomes the most dangerous weapon of all, one question remains: what happens when the hunter and the hunted can no longer tell who is chasing whom? If you're ready for a story where every touch is a test and every word hides a blade, hit that subscribe button and let's dive into the shadows together. The auction room smelled of cigars and desperation. Louisa kept her head down, shoulders hunched, breathing shallow like fear had stolen her oxygen. Around her, other girls trembled genuinely while she mimicked their terror with practiced precision. The concrete floor was cold beneath her bare knees, and the zip ties around her wrists were loose enough to slip free in 3 seconds if needed. She'd ensured that herself when the traffickers weren't looking. Men in expensive suits circled like sharks, their eyes cataloging merchandise. Louisa counted 12 potential targets, memorizing faces, noting the bulges under jackets that meant concealed weapons. Her pulse remained steady even as hands grabbed her chin, tilted her face toward harsh fluorescent lights. She let her eyes go unfocused, let her body go limp. "This one's fresh," the handler said in Korean, his breath reeking of soju. "Came in yesterday. African. Untouched. Premium quality." The man inspecting her grunted, unimpressed, and moved on. Louisa exhaled slowly, maintaining her performance. Somewhere in this building was evidence connecting this trafficking ring to weapons smuggling routes through Lagos. Somewhere in the organization that ran this nightmare was a man known only as Seven Finger, and he was her real target. The door at the far end opened, and the room's energy shifted like a predator had entered the water. Louisa didn't lift her head, but she felt him. Everyone did. Conversations died. Even the handler straightened, suddenly nervous. Footsteps crossed the concrete with measured confidence, expensive shoes clicking against the floor with a rhythm that suggested a man who had never hurried for anything in his life. Kim Eunwoo, someone whispered, the name carried on a breath of reverence and terror. Louisa's training kept her frozen, but her mind raced. Kim Eunwoo. The intelligence files had been thick with his name, the 32-year-old who'd consolidated Seoul's underworld before expanding into international operations. Ruthless. Strategic. Untouchable. The South Korean government couldn't prove half of what he'd done, and the other half they were too afraid to prosecute. He wasn't supposed to be here tonight. This was supposed to be a mid-level operation, small fish that would lead her to the mole inside his organization. The footsteps came closer. Louisa focused on her breathing, on keeping her heart rate down, on maintaining the illusion of drugged compliance. She'd taken just enough of the sedative they'd forced on the girls to make her pupils dilate convincingly, but she'd purged most of it 15 minutes later when the guards weren't watching. The shoes stopped in front of her. Black Italian leather, immaculately polished. She could see her reflection distorted in them. "Stand her up," a voice said. Low, controlled, with a kind of quiet authority that didn't need volume to command obedience. Rough hands hauled Louisa to her feet. She swayed deliberately, letting her knees buckle slightly before catching herself. The handler's grip tightened on her arm, holding her upright. Silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. 4. 5. Then fingers touched her chin, tilting her face up with surprising gentleness. Louisa let her eyes drift upward slowly, affecting the sluggish movement of someone heavily sedated. Kim Eunwoo was beautiful in the way a blade was beautiful, elegant, precise, dangerous. Sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that seemed to see through skin and bone to whatever truth lay beneath, black hair swept back from a face that could have graced magazine covers if it didn't regularly make men beg for mercy. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than some people's cars, and his expression was utterly neutral. But his eyes were studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle with warning. What's your name? He asked in English, his accent slight but noticeable. Louisa let silence hang for a moment, then whispered hoarsely, Louisa. She added a tremor to her voice, let her eyes fill with carefully calculated tears. Please, please, I want to go home. Something flickered across Eunwoo's face too quickly to read. His thumb brushed along her jawline, and she felt him press gently against her pulse point, testing her heart rate. Her training screamed at her to stay calm, and she did, but she let her breathing hitch, let a tear spill over. She's terrified, the handler said eagerly. See? Pure merchandise. Never been. How much? Eunwoo interrupted, his eyes never leaving Louisa's face. For you, Mr. Kim, 200,000 US dollars. She's worth. I'll give you 300,000. And you'll forget I was here tonight. The handler's intake of breath was audible. Of course, Mr. Kim. Of course. Whatever you wish. Eunwoo's fingers lingered on her jaw for another moment, then dropped away. He turned to a man beside him, tall, scarred, watchful. Sungtae, handle the payment. Bring her to the car. As Eunwoo walked away, Louisa caught his murmur to another man, this one leaner with cold eyes. She's too calm, Han-sun. Her pulse is steady. I want to know why. Louisa's blood froze, but she kept her expression vacant, her posture defeated. He'd noticed. In 30 seconds of interaction, he'd noticed what should have been invisible. This was bad. This was very bad. But she was committed now. The mission had just become infinitely more complicated, but also infinitely more promising. If Eunwoo had chosen her personally, she'd just gained access to the inner circle far faster than she'd anticipated. The man called Sungtae gripped her arm, firmly, but without the casual cruelty of the traffickers, and led her toward the exit. Louisa shuffled her feet, maintaining her act, but her mind was already 3 steps ahead, recalculating, adjusting, preparing. Outside, the Busan night was humid and thick with the smell of the sea. A black Mercedes waited at the curb, windows tinted so dark they seemed to absorb light. Sungtae opened the rear door, and Louisa caught a glimpse of Eunwoo inside, his face illuminated by his phone screen. Get in, Sungtae said, not unkindly. Louisa climbed in with deliberately clumsy movements, letting herself collapse against the far door. The leather was soft, the interior temperature perfectly controlled. Eunwoo sat at the other end of the seat, still focused on his phone, apparently ignoring her completely. The door closed. The car pulled away from the curb with barely a whisper of sound. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Louisa kept her breathing shallow, her eyes half closed, watching him through her lashes. Eunwoo typed something, sent it, then finally set his phone aside and turned his full attention to her. You don't have to be afraid, he said quietly. I'm not going to hurt you. Louisa let herself tremble. Where are you taking me? Somewhere safe. His head tilted slightly. You speak English well. Where in Africa are you from? Kenya, she whispered, using her cover story. Nairobi. I was visiting my cousin in Seoul. They took me from a restaurant 3 weeks ago. Please, I just want to call my family. What's your cousin's name? Louisa hesitated just long enough to seem like she was sedated and struggling to think, then provided the name from her cover identity. Eunwoo studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. We'll see, he said. The rest of the drive passed in silence. Louisa counted turns, estimated distances, built a mental map. They were heading away from the city center, into the hills where the wealthy built their fortresses. When the car finally stopped, they were in front of a sprawling modern estate, all glass and steel and strategic lighting that turned it into something between a home and a work of art. Sungtae opened the door. Come on. Inside, the house was as pristine as a museum and twice as cold. White marble floors, minimalist furniture, art that probably cost more than Louisa's annual salary. A woman in her 50s appeared, stern-faced, efficient, and Eunwoo spoke to her rapidly in Korean. Louisa caught enough to understand she was being told to prepare a room and bring food. Mrs. Choi will take care of you tonight, Eunwoo said to Louisa. You'll sleep, eat, rest. Tomorrow we'll talk more. Wait, Louisa said, injecting desperation into her voice. You're not going to. No. The word was final. Not tonight. Not until you're clear-headed enough to understand what's happening. It was a kindness that didn't match his reputation. Louisa felt a flicker of something she quickly suppressed. Sympathy was dangerous. He was still a criminal, still responsible for countless atrocities, still the shield protecting whoever Seven Finger was. Mrs. Choi led her upstairs to a bedroom that was larger than most apartments. A bathroom adjoined it, all marble and gold fixtures. Clean clothes had been laid out on the bed, expensive, tailored, absolutely not what a trafficked girl would expect. Shower, Mrs. Choi said in heavily accented English. Then eat. Mr. Kim says you need strength. When the door closed, Louisa immediately checked for cameras. She found 3, one in the smoke detector, one in the air vent, one disguised as part of the light fixture. All positioned to watch the room but not the bathroom. She went through the motions of showering, letting the hot water run while she examined the bathroom window. Reinforced glass, 3 stories up, with a clear view of the grounds where guards patrolled with dogs. She wasn't leaving this house without Eunwoo's permission, which meant she needed to play this perfectly. After drying off and dressing in the provided clothes, designer jeans and a silk blouse that fit her perfectly, which meant someone had accurately estimated her size, Louisa found a tray of food waiting on a table by the window. Bibimbap, perfectly prepared, alongside fresh fruit and tea. She ate carefully, checking each dish for drugs before consuming it. Clean. She was finishing the meal when the door opened without a knock. Eunwoo stood in the doorway, still in his suit but with his jacket removed and his sleeves rolled up. The casualness of it somehow made him more dangerous, like seeing a panther at rest. Feeling better? He asked. Louisa set down her chopsticks with shaking hands. What do you want from me? Conversation. He moved into the room, but stopped a careful distance away, leaning against the wall. I'm curious about you, Louisa from Nairobi. You're an interesting puzzle. I'm not a puzzle. I'm a person. I'm someone's daughter. I have a life, You have excellent control over your fear response, Eunwoo interrupted. Most people in your situation would be hysterical by now. You're scared, certainly, but it's calculated. Measured. Like you're deciding how afraid to appear. Louisa felt her pulse spike. She let it show on her face. I don't understand. I'm terrified. Please, just let me go. I won't tell anyone, I swear. Your pulse was 65 beats per minute when I touched you at the auction. His voice remained conversational. Do you know what the average heart rate is for someone experiencing genuine terror? Between 100 and 120. You were barely elevated. The room felt smaller suddenly. Louisa wrapped her arms around herself. The drugs. They gave us drugs. Maybe that's why. Maybe. Eunwoo smiled slightly. Or maybe you're exactly what you appear to be, and I'm being paranoid. It's a flaw of mine, seeing threats where none exist. He pushed off from the wall. Get some rest. Tomorrow you'll tell me more about your cousin in Seoul, and why a woman traveling alone from Kenya would visit without her family knowing where she was. He was at the door when Louisa spoke. What happens if you decide I'm lying? Eunwoo paused, looking back over his shoulder. Then we'll have a very different conversation. But I hope that's not necessary. I'd rather not waste something beautiful. The door closed. Louisa heard the lock engage. She sat on the bed, her mind racing. He was suspicious, but not certain. Good. She could work with suspicious. What she couldn't work with was certainty. She waited 3 hours, until the house grew quiet and the lights beyond her window dimmed. Then she picked the lock on her door with a hairpin she'd palmed from the bathroom. Simple mechanism. Took her 45 seconds. The hallway was empty, cameras in the corners tracking on motion sensors. She stayed low, moving in the blind spots she'd memorized, making her way toward what she'd identified as Eunwoo's office during her mental mapping of the house layout. The office door was locked with a much better mechanism, but Louisa had trained with the best. 3 minutes and she was inside, careful not to disturb anything as she moved to the desk. His computer was password protected, but she wasn't looking for digital files. Men like Eunwoo kept their most sensitive information offline. She found the safe behind a painting, original Rothko, probably worth millions, and was halfway through cracking the combination when she felt the shift in air pressure that meant a door opening. I knew you weren't a virgin. Eunwoo's voice came from behind her, amused and deadly. But I wasn't sure what you actually were. Now I'm very curious. Louisa turned slowly, hands raised. Eunwoo stood in the doorway, wearing black silk pajama pants and nothing else, a gun held loosely at his side. Not pointed at her. Not yet. The lock on your door is meant to be picked, he continued. I wanted to see where you'd go. And here you are, in my office, opening my safe like you've done this before. He moved into the room, closing the door behind him. So, let's stop pretending. Who are you really, Louisa from Nairobi? She calculated her options in a split second. Fight, she could probably take him, but not without noise, and there were guards throughout the house. Run, nowhere to go. Lie, he was already past believing her. So she went with a fourth option, partial truth. I'm not a trafficked girl, she said quietly. You're right about that. Obviously. He set the gun on the desk, out of her reach but within his. Keep going. I'm a journalist. Investigative. I've been tracking the trafficking networks in East Asia for 2 years. I let them take me so I could document the operation from inside. Eunwoo laughed, the sound sharp and genuine. A journalist. Breaking into my safe. Checking camera blind spots. Moving like someone with military training. He stepped closer. Try again. I was military before journalism. Kenyan Defense Forces. 5 years before I left for journalism school. Better. Another step. But still not quite right. Your accent is perfect, but you slip sometimes. Not Kenyan slips. American ones. The way you said curious earlier had a Houston inflection. Louisa's blood ran cold. She'd been so careful, so precise, and he'd caught something she hadn't even noticed in herself. Fine, she said. I'm American intelligence. CIA. I was sent to document your trafficking operations. Now you're just telling me what you think I want to hear. Eunwoo was close enough now that she could see the faint scar along his collarbone, could smell his cologne, something subtle and expensive. But we're getting closer to the truth, aren't we? Someone sent you. Someone with resources and training. Someone who wants information about my organization. His hand came up, fingers curling gently around her throat, not squeezing, just resting there, feeling her pulse. Your heart rate just jumped to 90. What are you afraid of, Louisa? You, she whispered. Liar. You're not afraid of me. You're afraid of what happens if I figure out who really sent you. His thumb pressed against her carotid artery. Interpol, maybe? They've been sniffing around my shipping operations for months. Or maybe something more specialized. Someone hunting something specific inside my organization. Louisa met his eyes. If you're going to kill me, do it. But I won't give you anything else. Kill you. Eunwoo smiled. Why would I kill you when you're so much more valuable alive? You're going to stay here, Louisa. You're going to be exactly what I bought tonight, a scared girl grateful for my protection. And while you're playing that role, I'm going to figure out exactly who sent you and what they're looking for. And when I do, his grip tightened just slightly. We'll see what you're really afraid of. He released her and stepped back, picking up the gun. The safe is empty, by the way. I moved everything important when I decided to bring you here. Did you really think I'd make it that easy? He gestured to the door. Back to your room. Tomorrow we start our dance properly. I'll pretend to believe you're a victim. You'll pretend to be grateful. And we'll both pretend we don't know exactly what game we're playing. Louisa walked past him, her mind already racing through implications and strategies. At the door, she paused. Why didn't you expose me downstairs? Why bring me back to my room? Because whoever sent you spent months setting this up. They'll have contingencies, backup plans, support waiting. If I expose you now, you're just one agent. But if I let you keep playing, he tilted his head. Maybe I catch something bigger. Or maybe I'm better at this than you think. Maybe. His smile was sharp. But I doubt it. Sleep well, Louisa. Tomorrow you're going to meet the rest of my people. Try not to get yourself killed. I'm invested in you now. Back in her room, door locked again, Louisa sat on the bed and let herself shake for exactly 60 seconds. Then she stopped, controlled her breathing, and began planning. He knew she was an infiltrator, but not who sent her or what she was looking for. That bought her time. And he was arrogant enough to think he could control the situation, which meant he'd keep her close, keep testing her. Which meant she could still complete her mission. She just had to survive long enough to find Seven Finger before Eunwoo figured out the truth. Or before she made the mistake of forgetting which side she was on. If you're hooked and want to see how deep this rabbit hole goes, hit that subscribe button now. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens when these two start really playing with fire. Like and comment below. Who do you think is playing whom? The next morning, sunlight filtered through sheer curtains and Louisa woke to find fresh clothes laid out again, this time a simple dress, elegant but modest. Mrs. Choi appeared with breakfast and a message. Mr. Kim wanted her downstairs in an hour. Louisa dressed carefully, checking her appearance in the mirror. She needed to look recovered but still vulnerable, strong enough to be believable but weak enough not to threaten. It was a balance she'd learned to strike during her 7 years with Interpol's Covert Operations Division. The breakfast room was all windows overlooking a garden that probably required a full-time staff to maintain. Eunwoo sat at the head of the table, reading something on a tablet, steam rising from his coffee. He looked up when she entered, his expression carefully neutral. Sit. Eat. He gestured to the chair at his right. Louisa sat, acutely aware of the two men standing behind Eunwoo. One was Sungtae from last night, solid, professional, watching her with curiosity rather than hostility. The other was the lean man with cold eyes, Han-sun, and his expression promised violence. Sleep well? Eunwoo asked, his tone conversational. Yes, thank you. Louisa kept her eyes down, subservient. The room is very comfortable. Good. You'll be staying here for a while. I've decided you need protection while we sort out your situation. Louisa looked up, affecting confusion mixed with hope. You're helping me? You're going to contact my embassy. Eventually. But these things take time. Documentation, verification, safety concerns. Eunwoo set down his tablet. For now, you're under my care. Sungtae will be your primary guard. You go nowhere without him. You speak to no one without permission. Understand? Yes. She let her voice crack slightly. Thank you. I don't know how to repay. Don't thank me yet. His eyes were unreadable. Han-sun thinks I should kill you. He thinks you're a plant, someone sent to spy on us. I told him he's being paranoid, but I also promised him I'd watch you very carefully. So you'll forgive me if your freedom is limited. Han-sun spoke for the first time, his voice like gravel. She's lying. Everything about her is wrong. Let me question her properly. No. Eunwoo's word was final. She's been through enough. We'll give her time to adjust, to show us who she really is. If you're right, Han-sun, she'll make a mistake. And if you're wrong, we've protected an innocent victim. He smiled without warmth. Patience. The rest of breakfast passed with stilted small talk. Eunwoo asked about her supposed life in Nairobi, and Louisa answered with the cover story she'd memorized until it felt like memory. She knew he was checking details, testing consistency, waiting for her to slip. She'd been trained for this, though. Every answer was smooth, natural, uncheckable. When they finished, Sungtae led her on a tour of the house. He was friendlier than she'd expected, pointing out rooms and amenities with something approaching kindness. Boss doesn't usually bring people here, he said as they walked through a library that held thousands of books. This is his private space. You must have impressed him somehow. I think I just scared him, Louisa said softly. He thinks I'm dangerous. Sungtae laughed. You? No offense, but you're tiny. What are you, 55 kilos? Boss could break you with one hand. Then why am I here? His smile faded. Because boss doesn't make mistakes. If he thinks something's off about you, something's off. My advice? Be exactly what you say you are. He's got a sense for lies, and he doesn't forgive them. They passed several other staff members, housekeepers, guards, a chef. All of them gave Louisa curious looks but kept their distance. In one hallway, she spotted security monitors showing various parts of the property. She memorized their positions, noting blind spots and patrol patterns. That afternoon, Eunwoo summoned her to his office. She found him behind his desk, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, looking at spreadsheets that meant nothing to her from this distance. Come in. Close the door. Louisa did, her pulse elevating naturally as she calculated the room's dimensions, exit points, potential weapons. Eunwoo noticed she saw his eyes flick to her hands, reading her tension. Relax. This is just conversation. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Tell me about your journalism career. I thought we'd moved past that lie. Oh, we have. But I want to know how quickly you adapt when I challenge your cover story. So indulge me. Tell me about the articles you've written, the investigations you've conducted, the awards you've won for your brave reporting. It was a trap wrapped in mockery. If she maintained the lie, he'd know she was committed to deception. If she broke character, he'd know he could pressure her into mistakes. Louisa chose a third option. I've written 17 articles in the last 3 years, she said clearly. 12 on trafficking networks, 3 on weapons smuggling, 2 on government corruption. I've won 2 regional press awards and been nominated for an international honor. My work has led to 7 arrests and the closure of 4 trafficking routes. None of it was journalism. Eunwoo leaned back, intrigued. Interpol creates press credentials for operations like this? Sometimes. It's good cover. Journalists can ask questions law enforcement can't. And the real mission? I already told you. Documentation. Evidence. Of me specifically? Of whoever I found. She held his gaze. You weren't the target. You were just supposed to be part of the landscape. And now? Now I'm sitting in your office, having abandoned my mission parameters completely, with no extraction plan and no support. Now I'm improvising. Eunwoo studied her for a long moment. I don't believe you. Not completely. But I appreciate the partial honesty. It's more than most people give me. He stood, moving around the desk to lean against it, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. Here's what's going to happen, Louisa. You're going to stay here. You're going to play the role of the grateful rescued victim. You're going to interact with my people, attend my social events, be visible as my current interest. And while you do that, I'm going to verify every single thing you've told me. If I find you've been honest, maybe we can reach an arrangement. If I find you've lied, he didn't finish the sentence. And if I refuse, then you become a problem I solve permanently. His voice remained conversational. I don't enjoy violence, Louisa, but I don't hesitate to use it when necessary. You're valuable to me, curious and alive. Dead, you're just cleanup. Quite the incentive program. He laughed, genuine surprise in the sound. You're either very brave or very stupid. I haven't decided which. Can't I be both? I suppose you can. He moved back to his chair. Dismissed. Sungtae will show you where you'll be working. I'm putting you in the administrative offices. Paperwork, filing, basic computer work. It'll give you something to do and let me watch what you access. Louisa stood. You know I'll try to escape. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. But you won't succeed. This house is a fortress and my people are very good at their jobs. You'll stay exactly as long as I want you to stay. She left without another word, her mind already working on the problem. The administrative offices meant access to computers, to communication systems, to the organizational structure. It was more than she'd hoped for. Eunwoo was either incredibly arrogant or playing a deeper game than she'd realized. Probably both. Over the next week, Louisa fell into a routine. Mornings were spent in the administrative wing, sorting through shipment manifests and inventory reports under the watchful eye of Mrs. Choi and another administrator named Young-mi. The work was legitimate business. Eunwoo ran several legal import-export companies that functioned as cover for his illegal operations. Louisa couldn't access anything sensitive, but she learned the organizational structure, memorized names and positions, built a mental map of his empire. Afternoons were more varied. Sometimes Eunwoo would summon her for conversation, testing her with questions that seemed casual but weren't. Other times she was left alone, and she'd explore the house under Sungtae's supervision, learning its rhythms and weaknesses. Sungtae was becoming a problem. Not because he was suspicious, but because he was kind. He talked to her like a person, brought her books from the library when he noticed what she liked, made sure she had food she enjoyed. He told stories about his sister, who was sick with some illness he never specified, and how working for Eunwoo paid for her treatment. Boss isn't what people think, Sungtae said one afternoon as they walked through the garden. I mean, he's dangerous, yeah, but he's fair. He takes care of his people. When my sister got sick, he flew in specialists from America, paid for everything, didn't ask me to pay him back. That's generous, Louisa said carefully. He's complicated. People think he's just a criminal, but he's got rules. He doesn't touch kids, doesn't allow drugs in his territory, doesn't tolerate disloyalty. Everything he does, there's a reason. What's his reason for keeping me? Sungtae's expression clouded. I don't know. But boss always has a plan. Always. That night, Louisa was summoned to dinner. Not in the breakfast room, but in the formal dining room, where a table set for 12 gleamed under crystal chandeliers. She found Eunwoo already there, along with several other men and women she'd seen around the estate but never spoken to. Louisa, join us. Eunwoo gestured to the seat at his right, the position of honor. Everyone, this is Louisa. She's staying with us for a while. Make her feel welcome. The dinner was surreal. Conversation flowed in Korean and English, touching on business, politics, gossip. Louisa was introduced to Eunwoo's inner circle, Min-ji, who ran his financial operations, Tae-yang, who handled logistics, Ji-won, who managed the legal businesses, and of course Han-sun, who barely acknowledged her existence. Halfway through the meal, Eunwoo touched her arm lightly. You're doing well. Very natural. I'm terrified, she said honestly, pitching her voice so only he could hear. I know, but you hide it beautifully. It makes me wonder what else you're hiding. Before she could respond, the door burst open. One of the guards stumbled in, blood staining his shirt, gasping something urgent in Korean. The room exploded into motion. Eunwoo was on his feet instantly, barking orders. Han-sun and Tae-young drew weapons and ran for the door. Sungtae appeared from nowhere, grabbing Louisa's arm. Upstairs. Now. What's happening? Attack. Dong-suk's people. Move. They ran through corridors as gunfire erupted somewhere in the house. Louisa's training took over, her mind cataloging escape routes even as Sungtae dragged her toward her room. They were 20 feet from the door when a window exploded inward, glass showering across the marble floor. A man came through, gun raised, eyes scanning for targets. He saw Sungtae and fired. Sungtae went down with a cry, blood blooming across his shoulder. The attacker swung his weapon toward Louisa. She moved without thinking. 3 steps forward, inside his guard, hand snapping up to redirect the gun barrel. The weapon fired, bullet punching into the ceiling. She drove her palm into his nose, felt cartilage crunch. He staggered back, and she swept his legs, sending him crashing to the floor. His gun skittered away. She grabbed it, checked the chamber, and held it steady on him as he groaned, blood streaming from his shattered nose. Footsteps pounded toward them. Eunwoo appeared, his own weapon drawn, Han-sun right behind him. They both stopped dead when they saw the scene, Louisa standing over an unconscious attacker, gun held with professional competence, Sungtae clutching his wounded shoulder. Interesting, Eunwoo said quietly. Very interesting. Louisa lowered the gun slowly, affecting shock and fear. He came through the window. I didn't think. You just disarmed a trained killer in 3 seconds. Eunwoo moved closer, studying her face. Where exactly did the Kenyan Defense Forces teach you close-quarters combat? Because that wasn't basic training. That was specialist work. Han-sun's gun swung toward her. She's a plant. I told you. Kill her now before. No. Eunwoo's word cut through the tension. She just saved Sungtae's life. Whatever she is, she's not working with Dong-suk. He looked at Louisa, his expression unreadable. But we will have a very long conversation about your training history. After we deal with this. More gunfire echoed from downstairs. Eunwoo barked orders in Korean, and people scattered. Han-sun stayed close to Eunwoo, his cold eyes never leaving Louisa. Can you shoot? Eunwoo asked her. Yes. A little. Good. Stay with Sungtae. If anyone comes through that door who isn't one of mine, shoot them. He handed her extra ammunition. Try not to die. I'm very invested in keeping you alive now. Then he was gone, Han-sun following, and Louisa was alone with Sungtae, who was staring at her with new understanding. You're not a victim, Sungtae said, his voice tight with pain. What are you really? Louisa knelt beside him, examining his shoulder wound. The bullet had gone through cleanly, painful, but not life-threatening if they stopped the bleeding. She tore strips from her dress, wadding fabric against the entry and exit wounds. Someone trying to survive, she said. Just like you. Press here. Hard. Boss is going to figure you out. He already has. The gunfire intensified downstairs, then gradually faded. Louisa positioned herself between Sungtae and the door, the gun steady in her hands despite her heart hammering. Minutes stretched like hours. She counted the rounds left, 14 in the magazine, 1 in the chamber. Enough for a firefight if it came to that, but she hoped it wouldn't. Finally, footsteps approached. Measured, confident. Eunwoo appeared in the doorway, a streak of blood across his cheek that wasn't his. His eyes went immediately to the gun in Louisa's hands, then to Sungtae. How bad? Through and through, Louisa said. He needs medical attention, but he'll live. Good. Eunwoo pulled out his phone, speaking rapidly in Korean. Then to Louisa. My doctor is coming. Dong-suk sent 8 men. We killed 5, captured 3. This was a probing attack, testing our defenses. He stepped fully into the room. You can lower the gun now. Unless you're planning to shoot me. Louisa carefully engaged the safety and set the weapon on a side table. How did they know to attack tonight? Excellent question. One I intend to answer. His gaze was sharp, analytical. But first, let's address what just happened. You moved like special forces. Not military police, not basic infantry. Someone trained you for close-quarters combat against armed opponents. So which agency? CIA? Mi-6? Mossad? Does it matter? It matters very much. Because whoever trained you wants something from me, and I need to know what that is before I decide whether to keep you as a fascinating puzzle or eliminate you as a threat. Sungtae groaned, and Louisa adjusted the pressure on his wound. Your man is bleeding. This conversation can wait. No, it can't. Because someone in my organization just told Dong-suk exactly when to attack, and I need to know if that someone is you. The accusation hung in the air. Louisa met his eyes steadily. If I were working with Dong-suk, would I have saved your guard? Would I have stayed here instead of using the chaos to escape? Maybe. If your real target is something else. If saving Sungtae bought you credibility. Eunwoo moved closer, and Louisa caught the scent of gunpowder and adrenaline. I don't believe in coincidences, Louisa. You appear in my life, and suddenly my security is compromised. So convince me you're not the threat. I can't prove a negative. Either you trust your instincts about me or you don't. My instincts say you're dangerous. They don't say which kind of dangerous. The doctor arrived then, an older man with steady hands who took one look at Sungtae and immediately began working. Eunwoo watched for a moment, then gestured for Louisa to follow him. She glanced back at Sungtae, who nodded slightly, giving her permission to go. Eunwoo led her not to his office, but to a room she hadn't seen before. A study lined with books in multiple languages, comfortable furniture arranged around a fireplace, windows overlooking the night-dark garden. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey without asking if she wanted one, handed her one, and sat in a leather chair that had molded to shape over years of use. Sit. Drink. Tell me the truth. Louisa remained standing. You won't believe it. Try me. She took a sip of the whiskey, expensive, smooth, wasted on her racing pulse, and made a decision. Partial truth had gotten her this far. Maybe full truth would get her further. I'm Interpol. Covert Operations Division. I've been undercover for 7 months, tracking weapons shipments from Seoul to Lagos. 3 months ago, our intelligence flagged a mole inside your organization, someone using your shipping routes to move military-grade weapons to insurgent groups in West Africa. My mission was to infiltrate, identify the mole, gather evidence, and extract. Eunwoo's expression didn't change. And the trafficking operation? A bonus. When I discovered you'd be connected to it, I used it as my entry point. What's this mole's name? We don't know. He's called Seven Finger in the intelligence. Someone in your inner circle, someone with access to your shipment schedules and routing information. For a long moment, Eunwoo said nothing. He swirled his whiskey, watching the amber liquid catch the light. I've suspected someone was using my infrastructure for months. Shipments arriving wrong, unexpected inspections at ports that should be secure. I thought it was Dong-suk trying to undermine me. You're saying it's internal? Yes. And you expect me to believe Interpol sent one agent, one woman, to infiltrate my organization and root out a traitor who's managed to hide from me? I'm not the only agent. I'm just the one you caught. His eyes sharpened. There are others? Did you think Interpol would rely on a single asset? There are 3 of us in Seoul right now. I'm the only one who made direct contact with you. Names. You know I won't give you that. Locations. Covers. How do I contact them? You don't. If I disappear, they'll assume I'm compromised and extract. If I confirm you're hostile, they'll pull out and Interpol will move to more aggressive methods. But if... She hesitated, then committed. If you want to find Seven Finger as much as we do, we could work together. Eunwoo laughed, the sound sharp and disbelieving. You want me to cooperate with Interpol? To help you gather evidence against someone in my own organization. I want you to protect your operation. Seven Finger is making you vulnerable. Every shipment he corrupts is a trail back to you. Every weapon that ends up in the wrong hands is a connection law enforcement can use. He's your problem as much as ours. And what do you get out of this arrangement? Seven Finger. Evidence of the weapons trafficking. And information about the networks he's using. Not me. Louisa met his gaze. You were never the primary target. Take that however you want. Eunwoo stood, moving to the window. His reflection was ghost-like in the glass, superimposed over the garden beyond. If I agree to this, and I haven't decided yet, what would you need from me? Access. Real access. To your shipment records, your communications, your financial transactions. I need to track the patterns Seven Finger is using. And in exchange, I'll help you find him. And when we do, you can handle him however you want. Interpol doesn't care what happens to him as long as the weapons pipeline is shut down. You're offering me carte blanche to execute a traitor. I'm offering you a chance to protect yourself while serving justice. What happens after that is between you and your conscience. He turned back to face her. I don't have a conscience, Louisa. It's inconvenient in my line of work. Everyone has a conscience. Some people are just better at ignoring it. Is that what you tell yourself? That underneath the monster, there's a man who might still be saved. He moved closer and Louisa held her ground. I'm not your redemption project. I'm not going to have an epiphany and turn state's witness and help you dismantle my empire. If we work together, it's because our interests align temporarily. That's all. I understand. Do you? Because I think you want to believe I'm more than what I am. That's dangerous, Louisa. For both of us. Before she could respond, Han-sun burst through the door without knocking. Boss, one of the prisoners is talking. You need to hear this. They followed him down to the basement, a space Louisa hadn't known existed, all concrete and shadows and the smell of fear. 3 men were zip-tied to chairs, bleeding from various injuries. Han-sun led them to the middle one, whose face was swollen almost beyond recognition. Tell him, Han-sun said in Korean, then switched to English for Louisa's benefit. Tell him what you told me. The man spoke through broken teeth. The orders came from inside. Someone in your house. They told Dong-suk when you'd be vulnerable. When the guards would be rotating shifts. Eunwoo's voice was ice. Who? Don't know. Dong-suk didn't tell us. Just said the information was good. Has been good for months. Eunwoo glanced at Louisa. Your mole. Possibly. If Seven Finger is feeding information to your rivals, he's more dangerous than we thought. Or, Han-sun interjected, his eyes on Louisa, she's the mole, and this is an elaborate setup to gain your trust. If I were the mole, I'd have let Sungtae die, Louisa said calmly. I'd have let that attacker kill him, then claimed I was too frightened to act. Instead, I saved your man and exposed my own training. Not exactly genius-level subterfuge. Han-sun's jaw tightened. Boss, she's right. Eunwoo cut him off. If she were working against us, she wouldn't have revealed herself like that. No, our mole is someone else. Someone who's been careful, who's stayed hidden. He looked at the prisoner. Did Dong-suk say anything else? Any detail about his source? Only that. The source wanted you dead. Personally. This wasn't just business. That changed the equation. Louisa saw Eunwoo's expression shift from cold analysis to something harder, more personal. Someone in his inner circle didn't just want to steal from him, they wanted him eliminated. We need to narrow down the suspects, Louisa said. Who has access to your security schedules? Who knows your routines well enough to predict vulnerability windows? Too many people. Eunwoo gestured to Han-sun. Get a full list. Everyone who could have known about tonight's dinner, about the guard rotations. Cross-reference with anyone who's had unexplained contact outside the organization. That includes her, Han-sun said, pointing at Louisa. Yes, it does. So investigate her too. Be thorough. Eunwoo turned to leave, then paused. And Han-sun? If you find evidence that she's involved, bring it to me before you act. I want to handle her personally. Back upstairs, Louisa found Sungtae had been moved to a bedroom, sedated and bandaged. The doctor was packing his bag. He'll be fine, the doctor said in accented English. Rest, antibiotics, clean dressing changes. He was lucky. Thanks to you, Eunwoo said to Louisa after the doctor left. Sungtae is loyal. His loss would have hurt me. I didn't do it for you. I know. You did it because it's who you are. That's what makes you dangerous. He moved to stand beside her, both of them looking at Sungtae's sleeping form. You save people. Even when they're criminals. Even when it compromises your mission. It's a weakness. Is it? In my world, yes. Mercy gets you killed. And yet you've shown me mercy. Multiple times. What does that say about you? He smiled slightly. That I'm curious enough to be stupid. Or stupid enough to be curious. He turned to face her fully. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to continue your cover, the grateful victim, the helpless girl I'm protecting. But you'll also have limited access to what you need. Files, records, communications. Supervised, of course. Han-sun will be watching you constantly, so don't do anything obvious. You're actually agreeing to work with me? I'm agreeing that we have a common enemy. For now, that's enough. His hand came up, fingers brushing her cheek where a speck of blood had dried, Sungtae's blood. But understand this, Louisa. The moment I think you're playing me, the moment I believe you're a threat to me or mine, this arrangement ends. And so do you. Understood. Good. He stepped back, professional distance reasserting itself. Mrs. Choi will show you to a new room. Yours was damaged in the attack. Tomorrow we begin. Tonight rest. You've earned it. Louisa watched him leave, then looked back at Sungtae. The man had treated her with kindness, had tried to make her comfortable, had told her about his sick sister. And she'd saved him because it was the right thing to do, but also because he was a lever she could use, a connection she could exploit. When had she become someone who thought like that? She pushed the thought away and followed Mrs. Choi to a new room, larger than the last, with better windows and a lock on the inside of the door. A gesture of trust, however small. Louisa locked the door, checked for cameras, only two, both obvious, and finally allowed herself to acknowledge the adrenaline crush. Her hands shook as she peeled off the torn, blood-stained dress. In the bathroom mirror, she looked like someone who'd survived a war zone, disheveled hair, wild eyes, bruises forming on her arms where she'd grappled with the attacker. She looked like someone who was in too deep. But she also looked like someone who'd gotten exactly what she needed, access, cooperation, and Eunwoo's complicated trust. Now she just had to find Seven Finger before Han-sun found proof to condemn her, before Eunwoo's curiosity turned to certainty, before this entire operation collapsed around her. No pressure. She showered, washed away the blood and sweat and fear, and lay down in the unfamiliar bed. Sleep should have been impossible, but exhaustion dragged her under within minutes. She dreamed of guns and blood and Eunwoo's eyes watching her with an intensity that felt like being dissected. The next morning, everything changed. Louisa woke to find not Mrs. Choi but a young woman in her 20s waiting with breakfast, Min-ji, the financial operations manager she'd met at dinner. Mr. Kim wants you to start immediately, Min-ji said, her English crisp and unaccented. You'll be working with me today. He says you have a background in financial analysis. Louisa sat up, accepting the coffee Min-ji offered. Some. Enough to be useful. Good. We have 6 months of shipping manifests that need to be cross-referenced with payment records. Someone's been skimming and boss wants to know who. Min-ji's expression was carefully neutral. He thinks an outside perspective might catch what we've missed. This was the access Eunwoo had promised. And also a test, if Louisa was the mole, this work would expose her patterns. When do we start? Now. Finish your coffee. We have a long day ahead. The financial office was in a separate wing of the house, a maze of computers and filing cabinets and whiteboards covered in Korean characters and numbers. Min-ji set Louisa up at a workstation with access to sanitized versions of the shipping records, enough detail to analyze patterns without revealing the illegal contents. Look for discrepancies, Min-ji instructed. Shipments that arrived but weren't logged correctly. Payments that don't match manifests. Routes that deviate without explanation. Anything unusual. Louisa dove in, her training kicking in. She'd analyzed trafficking networks before, had traced money through layers of shell companies and false invoices. This was the same skill set, just applied differently. Hours passed. Minji worked beside her in silence, occasionally answering questions, but mostly letting Louisa work independently. Around noon, Eunwoo appeared with lunch, a gesture that surprised both women. Finding anything? He asked Louisa. Maybe. There's a pattern in the Lagos shipments. Every third container shows a weight discrepancy of about 5%. Not enough to trigger automatic flags, but consistent enough to be deliberate. Eunwoo leaned over her shoulder, studying the screen. His proximity was deliberate, she knew, testing her reaction, watching for tells. She kept her breathing steady, her focus on the data. 5% of what? He asked. I don't know yet. The manifests are coded. But someone's moving something extra in those containers, something heavy enough to change the weight, but not the volume. My guess? Weapons. Small arms ammunition would fit that profile. Minji looked up sharply. How long has this been going on? Based on these records? At least 18 months. Possibly longer if I had access to older files. Eunwoo straightened. Minji, pull everything from the last 3 years. Lagos route only. I want complete analysis by tomorrow. To Louisa, you're sure about this? As sure as I can be without physical verification. But yes, someone's been using your Lagos containers for unauthorized cargo. 7 finger, he murmured, almost to himself. Then louder, good work. Keep digging. I want names, dates, who signed off on these shipments. Someone in logistics is involved. After he left, Minji studied Louisa with new respect. You found in 4 hours what we've been missing for over a year. Either you're very good at your job, or I'm the one doing it, and I'm setting up a patsy, Louisa finished. I know how this looks. But if I were 7 finger, would I point you directly at my own operation? Maybe, if you were planning to blame someone else. Boss is right to be suspicious of you. And are you? Suspicious? Minji smiled slightly. I'm suspicious of everyone. It's how I've survived in this world. But I'm also practical. If you're helping us catch a traitor, I don't care about your motives. Just don't make me regret trusting you. They worked through the afternoon, building a comprehensive picture of the Lagos discrepancies. By evening, Louisa had identified 12 shipments with a suspicious pattern and narrowed down the logistics personnel who could have authorized them. 3 names kept appearing: Tae-young, the logistics manager; Young-soo, his deputy; and someone listed only as Director Kim, which she assumed was Eunwoo himself. That last name was problematic. When Eunwoo summoned her to study that evening, she brought her findings carefully organized. He read through them in silence, his expression unreadable. Your analysis implicates me, he said finally. Your name is on the authorization forms. But that could mean someone forged your signature or used your credentials without permission. Or it could mean I'm 7 finger, and you're trying to determine if I know you're investigating me. Louisa met his eyes. If you were 7 finger, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You'd have killed me the first night when I broke into your office. Would I? Maybe I'm playing a deeper game. Maybe I'm using you to eliminate rivals while protecting myself. Are you? He smiled, sharp and dangerous. What do you think? I think you're too smart to smuggle weapons through your own infrastructure. The risk-reward doesn't make sense. You have legitimate businesses that generate enormous revenue. Why jeopardize that for what amounts to pocket change in the weapons trade? Flattery. Analysis. You're a businessman who uses criminal methods, not a criminal who plays at business. There's a difference. And 7 finger? Is someone who needs money desperately enough to risk everything. Someone with personal debts or obligations that your organization's salary won't cover. Someone who's been clever enough to hide it for 18 months, but not clever enough to avoid a detectable pattern. Eunwoo leaned back, studying her. You're very good at this. Profiling, analysis, reading people. It's attractive. The shift in topic caught her off guard. Excuse me. You heard me. I find competence attractive. Intelligence. The way your mind works, connecting data points, building narratives. It's compelling. He stood, moving around the desk. Does that make you uncomfortable? Yes. Good. You should be uncomfortable. This situation is complicated enough without adding more variables. Louisa stood her ground as he approached. What are you doing? Testing a theory. You're very controlled, very disciplined. But there are moments when your mask slips. When you saved Sungtae, you weren't thinking, you were reacting. When you analyzed these files, you forgot to hide your expertise. And right now, with me standing this close, your pulse just jumped. His hand rose, fingers hovering near her throat without touching. You're attracted to me. It's an inconvenient complication for both of us. You're imagining things. Am I? Your pupils are dilated. Your breathing has changed. These are involuntary responses, Louisa. Your body is telling me what your words won't. She stepped back, creating distance. This is inappropriate. Everything about this situation is inappropriate. But that doesn't make it less real. He didn't pursue her, letting the space open between them. I'm not going to act on it. That would be stupid, and I didn't survive this long by being stupid. But I want you to know I'm aware of it. Because awareness is power, and I don't give away power easily. Are we done here? For now. Tomorrow, we investigate Taeyong and Young-soo. Quietly. I don't want to spook Seven Finger into running before we have proof. He returned to his desk, dismissing her with the gesture. Oh, and Louisa? Han-sun is convinced you're the traitor. Watch your back around him. He doesn't need proof to act. Louisa left before she could say something she'd regret. Her heart was pounding, and not entirely from fear. Eunwoo was right, there was an attraction, a dangerous pull between them that went beyond just physical chemistry. It was intellectual, two minds circling each other, testing boundaries, finding unexpected resonance. It was also completely fucked. She was undercover. He was her target, however indirect. Any feelings beyond professional interest were a liability that could get her killed. And yet, she found herself thinking about his hands, the way he moved, the sharp intelligence in his eyes. The way he looked at her in his study, like he saw past every defense to something raw and real beneath. Stop it, she told herself firmly. Focus on the mission. Find Seven Finger. Get out alive. Anything else is suicide. But that night, she dreamed of him anyway. The next 3 days were a blur of investigation. Louisa and Minji, with Eunwoo's authorization, dug deep into Taeyong's and Young-soo's financial records, communications, and movement patterns. Taeyong was clean, annoyingly, boringly clean. No unexplained income, no suspicious meetings, no connection to anything questionable. Young-soo was different. Look at this, Minji said on the third day, pulling up bank records. Monthly deposits of 50,000 won from an offshore account. It's not huge money, but it's consistent. And the account originates from Lagos. Louisa felt the pieces clicking together. Who has access to Young-soo's communication records? Boss does. But we'd need authorization to pull them. They brought it to Eunwoo that evening. He reviewed the findings with Han-sun present, a deliberate choice, Louisa realized, to keep his second-in-command informed and potentially to test her reactions. Young-soo has been with me for 6 years, Eunwoo said slowly. He's reliable. Careful. This doesn't fit his profile. Unless he has a reason you don't know about, Louisa said. Personal debt. Family obligations. Blackmail. Something that would force someone reliable and careful to take risks. Han-sun spoke up, his voice cold. Or someone is framing him. Setting up a scapegoat while the real traitor watches us chase shadows. He was looking directly at Louisa when he said it. Pull Young-soo's full file, Eunwoo ordered. Family history, financial background, everything. If there's a pressure point, I want to know what it is. And Han-sun, put surveillance on him. I want to know everywhere he goes, everyone he talks to. But subtly. If he is Seven Finger, I don't want him running. Over the next 48 hours, they watched Young-soo. He followed his normal routine, home, office, occasional meals with friends. Nothing suspicious. No secret meetings, no unexplained phone calls. Then, on the 6th night of Louisa's investigation, he broke pattern. Young-soo left his apartment at 11 p.m. and drove to a warehouse district on the outskirts of Seoul. Han-sun followed at Eunwoo's orders, taking Louisa and Sungtae, recovered enough to work light duty, as backup. Stay in the car unless I signal, Han-sun instructed. If this goes bad, he looked at Louisa, don't exist. Understood. They watched from a block away as Young-soo entered a nondescript warehouse. 5 minutes later, another car arrived. A man got out, Western, tall, heavily muscled, and followed Young-soo inside. Can you get a photo? Louisa asked. Sungtae already had his phone up, zooming in. Got it. Sending to boss now. Eunwoo's response came 30 seconds later. Nigerian national. Known arms dealer. Lagos connections. Move in. Hansan was out of the car before Louisa could react, weapon drawn, moving with lethal precision toward the warehouse. Sungtae followed, and after a moment's hesitation, so did Louisa. She wasn't supposed to exist, but she also wasn't going to sit in a car while this went down. They breached the warehouse together, Hansan leading, professional and brutal. Inside, Young-soo and the Nigerian were examining wooden crates marked with shipping labels. Eunwoo's labels. Don't move, Hansan barked in Korean, then English. Young-soo froze, his face draining of color. The Nigerian reached for a weapon and Hansan shot him in the shoulder before he could draw. The man went down screaming. And then everything exploded into chaos. More men emerged from the shadows, 4, 5, 6, all armed. Louisa's training took over. She dropped, rolled behind a crate, came up firing. 2 rounds sent her mass. The nearest attacker went down. Sungtae was beside her, his shoulder wound clearly bothering him, but not stopping him from returning fire. Hansan advanced like a machine, eliminating threats with cold efficiency. The firefight lasted maybe 90 seconds. When the noise stopped, 4 men were dead, 2 wounded, and Young-soo was on his knees, hands on his head, crying. Please, he gasped. Please, I had no choice. My brother. They have my brother. They said they'd kill him if I didn't cooperate. Please, boss will understand. Please. Hansan hit him hard enough to shut him up. You'll talk. You'll tell boss everything. And then he'll decide if you deserve mercy. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called the police. They needed to move. Sungtae, call our cleanup crew, Hansan ordered. Get this mess handled. I'm taking Young-soo to boss. And you, he looked at Louisa, you were never here. Understood. Understood. But as they fled the warehouse, as they loaded Young-soo into the car and drove away from the scene, Louisa couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Young-soo had broken too easily. The Nigerian dealer had been too convenient. The whole thing felt staged. When they arrived back at the estate, Eunwoo was waiting. His expression was thunderous as Hansan dragged Young-soo from the car. Basement, Eunwoo said simply. I want to hear everything. Want to see what happens when Eunwoo interrogates his traitor? Subscribe now and hit the like button. This story is about to get even darker. Drop a comment telling me if you think Young-soo is really 7-finger or if there's something bigger at play. The basement interrogation was brutal. Louisa watched from the shadows as Eunwoo methodically broke Young-soo down, extracting every detail about the weapon smuggling, the Nigerian contacts, the payments. Young-soo confessed to everything, 18 months of theft, of using Eunwoo's infrastructure, of selling information to rivals. But something still felt wrong to Louisa. The brother, she said suddenly, interrupting. You said they have your brother. Who is they? Young-soo looked up, his face a mess of tears and blood. I don't know. Contacts through the Nigerian. They never identified themselves. Just said they'd kill him if I didn't cooperate. And you never tried to verify? Never asked for proof of life. They sent photos. Every week. Him tied up, hurt. I couldn't risk. Show me. Young-soo fumbled for his phone with shaking hands. Hansan grabbed it, scrolled through, then handed it to Eunwoo. Eunwoo looked at the photos, his expression darkening. These are staged, he said quietly. Professional staging. The lighting, the angles. This isn't opportunistic kidnapping. This is theater. Louisa moved closer, examining the phone over Eunwoo's shoulder. He was right. The photos showed Young-soo's brother restrained and frightened, but the composition was too careful, too deliberate. Someone set this up, she said. Someone who wanted Young-soo compliant and scared. Someone who knew exactly which pressure point to use. Eunwoo turned to Young-soo. Where is your brother really? I don't know. The photos are fake. Or at least manipulated. Eunwoo grabbed Young-soo's face, forcing eye contact. Think. Who knew about your brother? Who knew you'd be vulnerable through him? Everyone. All the inner circle knows I support my family. It's not secret information. Which meant 7-finger could be anyone who'd bothered to learn Young-soo's background. They were back to square one, except now Young-soo was compromised and useless as bait. Unless. We can use this, Louisa said slowly. Young-soo contacts his Nigerian handler, tells them the shipment is ready. We set a trap, see who shows up. If Seven Finger is coordinating this, they'll need to be there to ensure it goes smoothly. Han-sun shook his head. Too risky. If Seven Finger smells a trap, we lose our chance. Then we don't make it obvious. Young-soo proceeds normally. We watch from a distance. Seven Finger won't be able to resist confirming everything is going according to plan. Eunwoo considered this, his eyes distant. Finally, he nodded. Do it. But Young-soo, understand this. If you try to warn them, if you deviate from the script by one word, I will find your brother, wherever he really is, and I will make sure you watch him die before I kill you. Are we clear? Yes, boss. Yes. I'll do exactly what you say. They moved fast. Young-soo sent the message that night. Shipment ready. Pick up in 48 hours. Usual location. The response came within an hour, confirmed. Now they waited. Those 48 hours were the longest of Louisa's life. She continued her administrative work, maintaining her cover, while Eunwoo coordinated the trap with military precision. Han-sun was suspicious of the plan and of her, but even he couldn't deny the logic. On the night of the exchange, they took positions around the warehouse. Eunwoo, Han-sun, Sung-tae, and 4 other trusted guards formed the perimeter. Louisa was supposed to stay back at the estate, safely out of danger. She went anyway. She followed in a separate vehicle, hanging back far enough not to be spotted, using tracking skills Interpol had drilled into her. When she reached the warehouse district, she found a vantage point on an adjacent building's roof, 3 stories up, clear sight lines, perfect for observation. Below, Young-soo met with a Nigerian dealer and 2 other men. They loaded crates into a truck, crates that Eunwoo's people had prepared, marked with tracking devices and filled with dummy weapons. But no one else appeared. No mysterious coordinator. No Seven Finger. Louisa felt frustration building. Had they been too obvious? Had Seven Fingers stayed away? Then she saw movement on another rooftop, someone watching just as she was. Dark clothes, professional stance, definitely not one of Eunwoo's people. She moved carefully, circling around, approaching from the blind side. The figure was focused on the warehouse, speaking quietly into a phone. Female voice, she realized as she got closer. Speaking Korean. Confirmed. Young-soo is proceeding. The trap is obvious, but they don't realize we know. Adjust the timeline. Move the real shipment tonight instead of waiting. Louisa's blood froze. She knew that voice. She stepped forward, her own weapon drawn. Don't move, Minji. The financial operations manager turned slowly, her expression shifting from shock to resignation to something harder. Louisa, you weren't supposed to be here. Neither were you. Louisa kept her gun steady. You're Seven Finger. Minji smiled, bitter and sharp. Clever. I knew you were good, but I didn't expect you to figure it out quite so fast. What gave me away? You had access to everything. Financial records, shipping manifests, personnel files. You knew Young-soo's vulnerabilities better than anyone because you processed his payroll. You knew exactly how to set him up as the perfect scapegoat. Louisa's mind was racing, fitting pieces together. The Lagos deposits into his account, you arranged those. The staged photos of his brother, you coordinated them. You've been playing all of us from the beginning. Not all of you. Boss still trusts me completely. And Han-sun is too busy suspecting you to look at anyone else. Minji's hand moved slowly toward her jacket. Don't do anything stupid, Louisa. You shoot me and boss will hear. He'll think you're eliminating the competition. Or I bring you in, prove you're the traitor, and complete my mission. Your mission. Minji laughed softly. You think Interpol sent you for weapons smuggling? That's adorable. They sent you because I left a trail for them to find. I wanted someone investigating Eunwoo's organization. I wanted the pressure, the scrutiny. Because when everything collapses, I'll be the one person who emerges clean, who can take over what's left. You're trying to destroy him. I'm trying to free myself from him. Do you know what it's like, being brilliant and capable and trapped serving a man who sees you as useful but never equal? I've built his financial empire. I've hidden his money, multiplied his profits, made him untouchable. And what does he give me? A salary and a pat on the head. Her voice turned venomous. He looks at you with more respect after 1 week than he's shown me in 6 years. Because you're mysterious, dangerous, a puzzle to solve. I'm just reliable Minji, doing her job. Louisa heard the jealousy, the years of resentment. So you decided to burn it all down. I decided to take what should have been mine from the beginning. The Nigerian operation was never about money, it was about creating chaos. Every weapon that moves through Unwoo's routes is evidence against him. Every shipment that goes wrong is another crack in his reputation. Eventually, the authorities will have enough to move against him. And when they do, I'll have already transferred his assets to accounts he doesn't know about, to shill companies I control. He'll kill you. If he finds out. But he won't, because you're going to die here, and I'm going to tell him you were Seven Finger all along. That I confronted you, that you fought back, that I had to kill you in self-defense. Minji's hand completed its movement, pulling a gun from her jacket. I'm sorry, Louisa. You seem like a good person. But I've come too far to let anyone stop me now. 2 things happened simultaneously. Minji fired, and Louisa dropped flat, the bullet passing through the space where her head had been. She rolled, came up firing back. Her shot caught Minji in the leg, and the woman went down with a scream. And below, in the warehouse, all hell broke loose. The sound of gunfire erupted, automatic weapons, multiple shooters. Louisa ran to the roof edge and saw Dong-suk's men swarming the building, dozens of them, far more than Unwoo's small team could handle. This wasn't an opportunistic attack. This was coordinated. Minji had sold them out. She'd given Dong-suk the location, the timing, everything. You're killing him, Louisa snarled, turning back to Minji. The woman was clutching her leg, blood seeping between her fingers. I'm freeing myself. If boss dies tonight, I become the inheritor of everything he's built. His people will need someone to lead them. Someone who knows the operations, the finances. Someone who can negotiate with Dong-suk for peace. Louisa had a split-second decision to make. Stay here, secure Minji, preserve the evidence, complete her mission. Or go down to that warehouse and fight beside a criminal who'd threatened her life multiple times. She chose wrong. Or right. She didn't know anymore. She fired a round into the rooftop near Minji's head, close enough to be terrifying, far enough not to kill. Stay down. If you move, I will end you. Then she ran, taking the fire escape 3 steps at a time, sprinting across the street toward the chaos. The warehouse was a war zone. Unwoo's people were pinned down, outnumbered, taking casualties. She saw Sungtae go down, blood spraying from his chest. Saw Hansun fighting like a demon, but slowly being overwhelmed. Saw Unwoo behind a concrete pillar, reloading, his suit jacket torn and bloodied. Louisa didn't think. She burst through a side entrance, firing as she moved. Training took over identify targets, prioritize threats, controlled bursts. 3 of Dong-suk's men went down before they realized they had a new enemy. She slid behind cover next to Unwoo, and he stared at her like she was a ghost. What are you doing here? Saving your life. You're welcome. I told you to stay home. I don't take orders from you. She leaned out, fired twice, dropped another attacker. Minji is 7 Finger. She set this up. She gave Dong-suk your location. For a moment, Unwoo's face went completely blank. Then something terrible shifted behind his eyes. Where is she? Rooftop across the street. I shot her, but she's alive. We need to survive this first before. An explosion rocked the warehouse. Part of the roof collapsed, flames erupting. Someone had thrown grenades. Fall back. Han-sun was shouting. Everyone out. Now. They retreated in organized chaos, laying down covering fire as they moved toward the exits. Louisa grabbed a wounded guard, half carrying him towards safety. Unwoo appeared beside her, taking the man's other side. Can you drive? He shouted over the gunfire. Yes. Then drive. He shoved her toward a car, one of theirs, parked in an alley. Get to the estate. Alert everyone. Tell them we're under attack. Tell them to lock down. What about you? I'm getting my people out. Go. She wanted to argue, wanted to stay and fight, but he was right. Someone needed to warn the estate. She ran for the car, bullets pinging off concrete behind her. The drive back was a blur. She pushed the car to its limits, running red lights, weaving through traffic. Her phone buzzed, text from an unknown number. Nice work, Agent Park. Your mission is complete. Extraction in 2 hours. Location to follow. Agent Park. Her real name. Someone from Interpol had been monitoring the situation, knew Minji was exposed, knew the operation was blown. But she couldn't think about that now. She reached the estate to find it already in defensive mode, guards at every entrance, lights blazing, weapons ready. She identified herself to the gate security, and they let her through. Mrs. Choi met her at the door, the older woman's face grave. Where's Mr. Kim? Still at the warehouse. Under attack. Dong-suk's men, dozens of them. He's bringing whoever he can save. How many? I don't know. Over the next hour, they trickled in. Han-sun arrived first, carrying a wounded guard. Then 2 more guards, one dragging Taeyong, who'd taken a bullet in the stomach. Then Eun-woo, covered in soot and blood, supporting Young-soo, the man who'd been the decoy, now injured but alive. Sung-tae didn't come back. Louisa saw the recognition in everyone's eyes, the grief held at bay by adrenaline. Sung-tae, who'd been kind to her, who'd talked about his sister, who'd warned her to be honest with Eun-woo. Gone. Eun-woo's face was a mask as he organized the defense, positioned guards, prepared for a potential siege. But Louisa saw his hands shake when he thought no one was looking. Saw the way he paused when passing Sung-tae's empty chair. When the immediate crisis was managed, he found Louisa in the security room. His eyes were hollow. Minji? Still on that rooftop, unless she managed to crawl away. I winged her pretty badly. Show me. She pulled up the location on a map. Eun-woo studied it, then called Han-sun over. Take a team. Bring her back alive. I want to hear her explain this personally. And if she resists, then make her compliant. I don't care how. After Han-sun left, Eun-woo sank into a chair, suddenly looking exhausted. Sung-tae is dead. Taeyong might not make it. We lost 4 guards. All because I trusted the wrong person. Louisa wanted to offer comfort, but didn't know how. You couldn't have known. I should have. The signs were there. I was just too arrogant to see them. He looked up at her. You saw them. You figured it out. Barely. And almost too late. But you came back. His voice was quiet. You could have run. Your mission was complete. You'd identified Seven Finger. But you came back into the fight. Why? Because I couldn't let you die. Because somewhere in this mess, you stopped being just a target and became something else. She couldn't say that. So she said, because it was the right thing to do. The right thing. He laughed bitterly. You almost died doing the right thing. Several times. You're either the best agent I've ever met or the worst. Both, probably. His phone buzzed. Han-sun, got her. Bringing her in. Eun-woo stood, and Louisa saw something terrible settle over him, the mask of the Mafia King, cold and merciless. You should go upstairs. What happens next isn't something you want to see. I'm staying. Louisa. I'm the one who caught her. I'm seeing this through. He studied her face, then nodded once. Your choice. But don't ask me to show mercy. I don't have any left tonight. They brought Minji to the basement, the same room where Young-soo had been interrogated. She was pale from blood loss, her leg roughly bandaged, but her eyes were still defiant. Boss, she said, her voice steady despite everything. Let me explain. Explain what? How you betrayed me. How you used my organization to smuggle weapons and then tried to destroy me from within. How you got Sung-tae killed. Eun-woo's voice was ice. I gave you everything. Position, authority, trust. And you threw it back in my face. You gave me scraps. I built your empire while you took the credit. You were compensated fairly. Paid more than anyone else in your position. Given responsibility and respect. But never equality. Never partnership. Always just the employee, the subordinate, the useful tool. Minji's composure cracked. I loved you, you know. For years. And you never even noticed. You looked right through me every day. But her, she pointed at Louisa, you see her. After 1 week, you look at her like she matters. The silence that followed was profound. Eun-woo's expression didn't change. You killed my people because I didn't return romantic feelings I never knew you had? That's insane. I killed your people because you deserve to lose everything, just like I lost everything working for you. My youth, my potential, my chance at a real life. All sacrificed at the altar of your ambition. She spat blood. I regret nothing. If I'd succeeded, I'd be free. And you'd be dead. Eunwoo pulled his gun. For a moment, Louisa thought he'd shoot Minji right there. Instead, he lowered the weapon. Han-sun, take her to the industrial district. Make it look like Dong-suk's work. Then make sure she's never found. Boss, Minji's defiance finally cracked into fear. Please. I'll disappear. You'll never see me again. Please. You killed Sung-tae. You betrayed everyone who trusted you. You tried to destroy me. His voice was empty. There's no mercy here. Not anymore. They dragged her away, her screams echoing up the stairs. Louisa felt sick. She'd known this would happen, had understood the consequences, but witnessing it was different. This was justice, mafia style. Final and brutal. You should go, Eunwoo said without looking at her. Your people will be extracting you soon. This is over. Is it? The mole is caught. Your mission is complete. What else is there? Everything, she wanted to say. We haven't finished our conversation. We haven't resolved what's between us. We haven't figured out if this connection is real or just circumstance. But she couldn't say any of that. So she said, what about Dong-suk? He'll come again. Let him. I'll be ready next time. She turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about Sung-tae. He was a good man. He was. He deserved better than to die in a warehouse because of someone else's betrayal. Finally, Eunwoo looked at her. You're a good agent, Louisa. Or whatever your real name is. You did your job well. Your superiors should be proud. My name is Louisa. That part was real. Was any of it real? The conversations? The moments between us? Or was it all performance? She met his eyes. I don't know anymore. That makes two of us. He turned away. Goodbye, Agent Park. I hope you get whatever you were looking for. Louisa climbed the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. At the top, she found Mrs. Choi waiting with her belongings packed in a small bag. Car is waiting, the older woman said gently. You should go before morning. Thank you. For everything. Take care of yourself, child. You've been brave. Perhaps too brave. The extraction point was a hotel near Incheon Airport. Louisa arrived as dawn was breaking, exhausted and hollowed out. Her handler was waiting, a severe woman named Agent Morrison who'd coordinated the entire operation from Interpol's Seoul office. Excellent work, Morrison said, reviewing Louisa's report. Minji's exposure will shut down the weapons pipeline completely. The Nigerian contacts are already being rolled up. This is a significant victory. She's dead. Eunwoo killed her. That's unfortunate but not unexpected. Mafia justice has its own rules. Morrison closed the file. You're being pulled out immediately. Your cover is blown and there's too much heat on this operation now. A plane leaves in 3 hours. You'll debrief in Lyon next week. What about Eunwoo? Is Interpol moving against him? Eventually. But that's not your concern anymore. You've done your part. Louisa wanted to argue, wanted to say that it felt unfinished, that leaving now felt like abandoning something important. But she was a professional. She'd completed her mission. This was how it always ended. Except it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the middle of something that would never be finished. She boarded the plane 3 hours later, exhaustion finally catching up with her. As Seoul disappeared beneath the clouds, she let herself acknowledge what she'd been denying for days. She'd fallen for him. For the enemy, the criminal, the man who'd threatened her life and broken her cover and somehow become the most fascinating person she'd ever met. It was unprofessional and stupid and completely impossible. And it was real. 3 months later, Louisa was back in Lyon, working a new case, human trafficking in Eastern Europe, similar to the Seoul operation, but with different players. She'd been debriefed, commended, offered a promotion. Her superiors were pleased with her work. She felt empty. The nightmares had started 2 weeks after extraction. Not about the violence or the danger, but about Eunwoo's eyes when he'd said goodbye. About Sung-tae's empty chair. About Minji's screams echoing up from the basement. She'd saved lives and stopped weapons smuggling. She'd done everything right. So why did it feel so wrong? She was reviewing case files in her apartment when her secure phone buzzed. Unknown number, encrypted message. She almost deleted it. Then she opened it. The girl who shouldn't have been chosen made an impression. If you ever want to finish that conversation we started, I know a quiet restaurant in Paris. Saturday, 8 p.m. Come alone. Or don't come at all. Either way, I'll understand. Kim. Eunwoo. He'd found her. Somehow, despite Interpol's security protocols and her new identity, he'd tracked her down. She should report this immediately. Should inform her superiors that a foreign criminal had contacted her directly. Should initiate protocols for potential compromise. Instead, she stared at the message for a long time, her heart racing. Saturday was 2 days away. Paris was a 3-hour train ride. This was insane. Career suicide. Potentially literal suicide. But she was already planning what to wear. The restaurant was elegant and discreet, the kind of place where powerful people made deals they'd never admit to. Louisa arrived 15 minutes early, scanned for exits and threats, confirmed her backup escape routes. Then she saw him. Eunwoo sat at a corner table, wearing a perfectly tailored suit, looking like he belonged in a magazine spread rather than a Europol watch list. He stood when she approached, the gesture old-fashioned and somehow touching. "You came," he said. "Against my better judgment. That seems to be a pattern with us." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit. Please. I promise no weapons, no threats, no games. Just conversation." She sat warily. "How did you find me?" "I'm very good at finding people who don't want to be found. And I'm very motivated when it comes to you. That should terrify me. But it doesn't." His eyes studied her face. "You look tired. The nightmares." How did he know about the nightmares? She didn't answer, but her silence was confirmation enough. "I have them too," he said quietly. "Sungtae. The warehouse." Minji's face when she realized I wasn't going to show mercy. "They visit me most nights." "Good. You should be haunted by what you did." "I am. But I'd do it again." She betrayed me, got my people killed, nearly destroyed everything I'd built. What would you have done? Turned her over to authorities. Let her face trial. In a system that would have eventually set her free on technicalities? That would have exposed my organization to scrutiny and destroyed more lives? Sometimes justice exists outside courtrooms, Louisa. That's a dangerous philosophy. I'm a dangerous man. You knew that from the beginning. He leaned forward. But you came anyway. Why? I don't know. Liar. You always know. You're one of the most analytical people I've ever met. So tell me the real reason. She met his eyes. Because I can't stop thinking about you. Because 3 months later, I'm still wondering what would have happened if circumstances had been different. If we'd met in another context, without the lies and the danger and the incompatible lives. And what do you think would have happened? I think we would have destroyed each other eventually. We're too different. You operate outside the law, and I've dedicated my life to upholding it. There's no bridge across that divide. And yet you're here. And yet I'm here. They ordered food neither of them ate, talked for 3 hours about everything and nothing. He told her about rebuilding after the attack, about the alliance with Dong-suk's nephew that had ended the war, about the memorial he'd held for Sungtae. She told him about Lion, about feeling disconnected from her work, about the recognition that scared her more than any mission. I'm good at undercover work because I can become someone else completely, she said. But when I was with you, I couldn't do that. You saw through everything. I ended up being more myself with you than I've been in years. I know the feeling. Everyone around me wears masks, plays roles. Even my closest people tell me what they think I want to hear. You told me the truth. Even when it was dangerous. Even when it could have gotten you killed. Is this smart? Meeting like this? Probably not. But I've spent the last 3 months being smart. Being careful. Rebuilding and consolidating and playing the game perfectly. And I've been miserable the entire time. He reached across the table, his fingers hovering near hers without touching. I don't know what this is between us. I don't know if it's real or if it's just the adrenaline and danger and circumstance. But I need to find out. Don't you? Louisa looked at his hand, so close to hers. One touch would change everything. Would cross a line she couldn't uncross. She took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, warm and solid and real. What now? I don't know. I'm supposed to report this contact. You're supposed to disappear and never contact me again. We're supposed to go back to our separate lives and pretend this never happened. But I don't want to. Neither do I. They sat there, hands linked across the table, two people from incompatible worlds who'd somehow found something neither could walk away from. This won't work, Louisa said. You know that, right? I can't give up my life, and you can't give up yours. There's no scenario where this ends well. Maybe not. But maybe we get something good before it ends. Maybe that's enough. Is it? Enough? I don't know. But I'd like to find out. Outside the restaurant, Paris glowed with evening light. Unwoo walked her to a taxi, his hand still holding hers. Stay, he said. Just for tonight. No obligations, no promises. Just stay. She should say no. She'd get in the taxi and return to Lion and forget this ever happened. Instead, she said, one night. One night, he agreed. They went to his hotel, expensive, discreet, with views of the Seine that took her breath away. In his room, they stood by the window, the city spreading out beneath them like a sea of light. I should go, Louisa said. You should. Neither of them moved. This is insane. Completely. We barely know each other. We know each other better than most people who've been together for years. We've seen each other at our worst. We've tested each other's limits. We know exactly what we're capable of. That should scare me more than it does. Same. He turned to face her, his hand coming up to cup her cheek. Tell me to stop. I can't. Then tell me you want this. That it's not just curiosity or rebellion or self-destruction. I want this. I want you. God help me, but I do. He kissed her then, and it was nothing like she'd imagined. Not rough or desperate, but careful, almost reverent, like he was memorizing the moment. She responded, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. They made it to the bed eventually, shedding clothes and inhibitions in equal measure. What followed was intense and honest and better than anything she'd expected. He touched her like she mattered, like this was more than just physical, and she let herself believe it for a few hours. Afterward, they lay tangled together, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. This can't happen again, she said. I know. I'm serious. This was a mistake. A beautiful mistake, but still a mistake. I know. We're from different worlds. There's no future here. I know. His hand stroked her hair. But I don't regret it. Do you? No. But I will. Eventually. Then we'll deal with that when it comes. She fell asleep in his arms, and for the first time in 3 months, she didn't have nightmares. When she woke, dawn was breaking over Paris. Unwoo was already awake, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. I have to go, she said. I know. This doesn't change anything. We're still on opposite sides. If I get assigned to investigate you, I won't hesitate. I wouldn't expect you to. And if you ever get in my way, I'll do what I have to do. Even if it means hurting me? I don't know. I hope I never have to find out. She dressed slowly, both of them aware this might be the last time. At the door, she paused. If things were different. They're not. Don't torture yourself with what-ifs. But if they were? He crossed to her, tilted her chin up, kissed her one last time. If they were, I'd choose you. Over everything. But they're not, so we'll never know if that's true or just beautiful fantasy. I'll remember you, she said. However this ends, I'll remember this. Same. Goodbye, Louisa Park. Thank you for being the girl who shouldn't have been chosen but was anyway. She left before she could change her mind, took a taxi to the train station, boarded the first train back to Lyon. From the window, she watched Paris disappear, and with it, the man who'd changed everything. 3 weeks later, Interpol assigned her to a new long-term investigation. The target, expanding operations against Asian organized crime networks. Primary subject, Kim Eun-woo. She stared at the assignment letter for a long time. Then she accepted it. Because she was a professional, and this was her job, and personal feelings didn't change that. But late that night, she sent a single encrypted message. They're coming for you. Be ready. L. His response came an hour later, I know. And when they do, I'll be thinking of Paris. K. She deleted both messages, erased all traces, and began planning the investigation that would either destroy him or destroy her. Or maybe somehow neither. But that was a story for another time. So there it is, the girl who shouldn't have been chosen and the king who couldn't let her go. Two people from incompatible worlds, connected by danger and desire and something neither can quite name. Will they destroy each other, or will they find a way to survive in the space between duty and desire? If you love this story, hit that subscribe button for more tales of forbidden connections and impossible choices. Like, comment, and let me know, would you choose love or duty if you were in Louise's position? Thanks for reading, and I'll see you in the next one.